swamp vegetation. Other important factors include soil fertility, natural disturbance, competition, herbivore burial, and salinity. 1. When peat from dead plants accumulates, bogs and fens develop. Wetland hydrology is associated with the spatial and temporal dispersion, flow, and physiochemical attributes of surface and groundwaters. Sources of hydrological flows into wetlands are predominantly precipitation, surface water, salt water or fresh water, and groundwater. Water flows out of wetlands by evapotranspiration, surface flows and tides, and subsurface water outflow. Hydrodynamics. The movement of water through and from a wetland affects hydroperiods, temporal fluctuations in water levels, by controlling the water balance and water storage within a wetland. 30. Landscape characteristics control wetland hydrology and water chemistry. The O2 and CO2 concentrations of water depend on temperature, atmospheric pressure and mixing with the air, from winds or water flows. Water chemistry within wetlands is determined by the pH, salinity, nutrients, conductivity, soil composition, hardness, and the sources of water. Water chemistry varies across landscapes and climatic regions. Wetlands are generally minerotrophic. Waters contain dissolved materials from soils, with the exception of ombrotrophic bogs that are fed only by water from precipitation. Because bogs receive most of their water from the atmosphere, their water usually has low mineral ionic composition. In contrast, wetlands fed by groundwater or tides have a higher concentration of dissolved nutrients and minerals. Fen peatlands receive water both from precipitation and groundwater in varying amounts, so their water chemistry ranges from acidic with low levels of dissolved minerals to alkaline with high accumulation of calcium and magnesium. 31. Role of salinity. Salinity has a strong influence on wetland water chemistry, particularly in coastal wetlands. 1. 32, and in arid and semi-arid regions with large precipitation deficits. Natural salinity is regulated by interactions between ground and surface water, which may be influenced by human activity. 33. Soil. Carbon is the major nutrient cycled within wetlands. Most nutrients, such as sulfur, phosphorus, carbon and nitrogen, are found within the soil of wetlands. Anaerobic and aerobic respiration in the soil influences the nutrient cycling of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. 34, and the solubility of phosphorus. 35, thus contributing to the chemical variations in its water. Wetlands with low pH and saline conductivity may reflect the presence of acid sulfates. 36, and wetlands with average salinity levels can be heavily influenced by calcium or magnesium. Biogeochemical processes in wetlands are determined by soils with low redox potential. 37, wetland soils are identified by redoximorphic mottles, often from iron oxide rust, or low tremor intensity, as determined by the Munsell color system. Water chemistry. Due to the low dissolved oxygen, dew, content, and relatively low nutrient balance of wetland environments, most wetlands are very susceptible to alterations in water chemistry. Key factors that are assist to determine water quality include major anion analysis, HCO3Cl-No3SO42. Major cation analysis, Ca2+, Mg2+, Na+, K+. pH. Conductivity increases with more dissolved ions in the water. Turbidity. Dissolved oxygen. Temperature. Total dissolved solids. Gas emissions, carbon dioxide and methane, CO2 and CH4. These chemical factors can be used to quantify wetland disturbances, and often provide information as to whether a wetland is fed by precipitation, surface water or groundwater, due to the different ion characteristics of the different water sources. 38. Wetlands are adept at impacting the water chemistry of streams or water bodies that interact with them, and can process ions that result from water pollution such as acid mine drainage or urban runoff. 39. 40. Biota. The biota of a wetland system includes its plants, flora, and animals, fauna, and microbes, bacteria, fungi. The most important factor affecting the biota is the hydro period, or the duration of flooding. 1. Other important factors include fertility and salinity of the water or soils. The chemistry of water flowing into outlands depends on the source of water, the geological material that it flows through. 41. And the nutrients discharged from organic matter in the soils and plants at higher elevations. 42. Biota may vary within outlands seasonally or in response to flood regimes. Flora. There are 4 main groups of hydrophytes that are found in wetland systems throughout the world. 43. Submerged wetland vegetation can grow in saline and freshwater conditions. Some species have underwater flowers, while others have long stems to allow the flowers to reach the surface. 44. Submerged species provide a food source for native fauna, habitat for invertebrates, and also possess filtration capabilities. Examples include seagrasses and eelgrass. Humid wetland in Pennsylvania before a rain. Bud of water lotus, Nelumbo nucifera, an aquatic plant. Floating water plants or floating vegetation are usually small, like those in the Lemoideae subfamily, duckweeds. Emergent vegetation like the cattails, Typha spp, sedges, Carex spp, Androarum, Peltandra virginica, rise above the surface of Thuta. When trees and shrubs comprise much of the plant cover in saturated soils, those areas in most cases are called swamps. 1. Upland boundary of swamps is determined partly by water levels. This can be affected by dams. 45. Some swamps can be dominated by a single species, such as silver maple swamps around the Great Lakes. 46. Others, like those of the Amazon basin, have larger numbers of different tree species. 47. Other examples include cypress, taxodium, and mangrove swamps. Fauna. Many species of frogs live in wetlands, while others visit them each year to lay eggs. Many species of fish are highly dependent on wetland ecosystems. 48. 49. 75% of the United States commercial fish and shellfish stocks depend solely on estuaries to survive. 50. Tropical fish species need mangroves for critical hatchery and nursery grounds and the coral reef system for food. Amphibians such as frogs and salamanders need both terrestrial and aquatic habitats in which to reproduce and feed. Because amphibians often inhabit depressional wetlands like prairie potholes and Carolina bays, the connectivity among these isolated wetlands is an important control of regional populations. 51. While tadpoles feed on algae, adult frogs forage on insects. Frogs are sometimes used as an indicator of ecosystem health because their thin skin permits absorption of nutrients and toxins from the surrounding environment, resulting in increased extinction rates in unfavorable and polluted environmental conditions. 52. Reptiles such as snakes, lizards, turtles, alligators and crocodiles are common in wetlands of some regions. In freshwater wetlands of the southeastern U.S., alligators are common and a freshwater species of crocodile occurs in South Florida. The Florida Everglades is the only place in the world where both crocodiles and alligators coexist. 53. The saltwater crocodile inhabits estuaries and mangroves and can be seen along the eastern coastline of Australia. 54. Snapping turtles are one of the many kinds of turtles found in wetlands. 55. Birds, particularly waterfowl and wading birds, Use wetlands extensively. 56. Mammals of wetlands. 57. Include numerous small and medium-sized species such as voles, bats. 58. Muskrats. 59. And platypus in addition to large herbivorous and apex predator species such as the beaver. 60. Coypu, swamp rabbit, Florida panther. 61. And moose. Wetlands attract many mammals due to abundant seeds, berries, and other vegetation as food for herbivores, as well as abundant populations of invertebrates, small reptiles and amphibians as prey for predators. 62. Snapping turtles are one of the many kinds of turtles found in wetlands. Invertebrates of wetlands include aquatic insects, such as dragonflies, aquatic bugs and beetles, midges, mosquitoes, crustaceans, such as crabs, crayfish, shrimps, microcrustaceans, mollusks, such as clams, mussels, snails, and worms, such as polychaetes, oligochaetes, leeches, among others. Invertebrates comprise more than half of the known animal species in wetlands and are considered the primary food web link between plants and dire animals, such as fish and birds. 63. The low oxygen conditions in wetland water and their frequent flooding and drying, daily in tidal wetlands, seasonally in temporary ponds and floodplains, prevent many invertebrates from inhabiting wetlands, and thus the invertebrate fauna of wetlands is often less diverse than some other kinds of habitat, such as streams, coral reefs, and forests. Some wetland invertebrates thrive in habitats that lack predatory fish. Many insects only inhabit wetlands as aquatic immatures, nymphs, larvae, and the flying adults inhabit upland habitats, returning to the wetlands to lay eggs. For instance, a common hoverfly Cirrata pipiens inhabits wetlands as larvae, maggots, living in wet, rotting organic matter. These insects then visit terrestrial flowers as adult flies. Algae. Algae are diverse plant-like organisms that can vary in size, color, and shape. Algae occur naturally in habitats such as inland lakes, intertidal zones, and damp soil, and provide a food source for many animals including some invertebrates, fish, turtles, and frogs. There are several groups of algae. Phytoplankton are microscopic, free-floating algae. These algae are so tiny that on average 50 of these lined up end to end would only measure 1 millimeter. Phytoplankton are the basis of the food web in many water bodies, being responsible for much of the primary production using photosynthesis to fix carbon. Filamentous algae are long strands of algal cells that can form floating mats. Periphyton, or epiphyton, are algae that grow as surface biofilms on plants, wood, and other substrates. 64. Schirra and Nightella algae are upright algae that look like a submerged plants with roots. 65. Disturbances and human impacts. Wetlands, the functions and services they provide as well as their flora and fauna, can be affected by several types of disturbances. 66. The disturbances, sometimes termed stressors or alterations, can be human-associated or natural, direct or indirect, reversible or not, and isolated or cumulative. Disturbances exceed the levels or patterns normally found within wetlands of a particular class in a particular region. Predominant disturbances of wetlands include SAD Smiley 67, 68, enrichment / eutrophication, organic loading and reduced dissolved oxygen, contaminant toxicity, acidification, salinization, sedimentation, altered solar input, turbidity / shade, vegetation removal, thermal alteration, drying / aridification, inundation / flooding, habitat fragmentation, other human impacts. Disturbances can be further categorized as follows: minor disturbance, stress that maintains ecosystem integrity. 69. Moderate disturbance, ecosystem integrity is damaged but can recover in time without assistance. 69. Impairment or severe disturbance, human intervention may be needed in order for ecosystem to recover. 69. Just a few of the many sources of these disturbances include SAD. 70, drainage,